Welcome to the JD Power AI and Insurance podcast, where we explore how artificial intelligence is reshaping the way insurance companies serve, grow, and innovate. I'm your host, Michael Vermillion. Today, we're joined by Meghan Anzelc, who leads the Transformation Solutions Center of Excellence at Aon. She's helped insurers move beyond the hype, putting strategy before technology and scaling practical AI across underwriting, claims, and operations. We'll demystify what's real, which use cases work, how to organize tech, talent, and ops, and where to start so momentum sticks. So let's dive in. Meghan, welcome. Thanks so much for joining us today on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
You lead Aon's Transformation Solutions Center of Excellence within the Strategy and Technology Group. So maybe as a start, can you tell us a little bit about the center, its mission, the kind of transformation work your team leads, and your role in helping clients succeed?
Sure. So it's a global center of excellence, really helping clients think through their transformation initiatives more holistically across talent, operations, and technology. So you might have a carrier who's going through a modernization of their policy admin system, right? And that's obviously a very tech-focused transformation. We would argue that in order to see the real value from that technology focused transformation, you need to be thinking about the implications both upstream and downstream for talent and operations as well.
Hmm.
So, regardless of sort of the focus of transformation, we think those three sort of legs of the stool together is really what drives the value for transformation initiatives for organizations.
Okay, and then from that vantage point, how do you define AI-enabled transformation today? And then maybe what's one misconception about AI that you find yourself clarifying for insurance leaders?
Sure. So I would say AI enabled transformation can show up in a number of ways. And I really think it's about starting with the problem that you're trying to solve and what outcomes you're looking to achieve, and then working backwards to say where is AI best placed and the appropriate solution to be using to help achieve those outcomes. In terms of misconceptions, I would actually call out two. So, one is there's a misconception that AI is relatively new and particularly new in the insurance industry. And if you look back in time, you can see that the insurance industry actually has a very long history of using particularly machine learning type models, probably going back 30 to 40 years. So that should help give some reassurance to folks that this isn't brand new. There's actually a long, well trodden path of how to use AI capabilities for value in companies. The second misconception is that it takes a significant investment to make real meaningful use of AI. And that was true a few years ago. So I understand why people believe that. But the barrier to entry is significantly lower today, and the capabilities have really been democratized over the last few years in a way that means that you can really achieve some meaningful usage of the capabilities without needing a huge dollar investment or having a big data science team. So those are the two I would say. It's not new, and it doesn't take a huge investment to be able to leverage the capabilities.
Well, that's good to know. So you've said that AI delivers the most value when strategy comes before the technology. So for carriers that are just getting serious about AI, what does a clear and actionable strategy look like? And maybe what are some of the common pitfalls they skip? What are some of the common pitfalls that happen when they skip that step?
Yeah. So really do think it's about tying to your business strategy. So really starting there. What are you trying to achieve as an organization? And that could be growth in new product lines. It could be improving profitability. It could be reducing your expense ratio. Whatever those goals and aspirations are, starting there and then working backwards to say where might AI be best suited to help achieve those objectives. So that I think is really critical, and is often an easy step to miss. I think because there's such excitement and interest about AI, we
Hmm.
often just want to get started doing AI. And I think really that connection to the business strategy is where the real value lies. So, in terms of the pitfalls, if you skip that step, I think we've seen a lot of organizations that do pilots and proofs of concept but they don't necessarily really see real value. So we talk to a lot of clients who are at that point where maybe they've done half a different experiments and tried out some different things. And now it's a little bit kind of scattershot and Wild West. And they're saying, well, what do I need to do to actually make this part of the organization? And do people really see value from it? And I think it's missing that step of really connecting to the business strategy.
Mm.
And then the other pitfall is missing out on scale. So again, you can kind of do some pilots, maybe you even deploy something to the full enterprise, but you're not going to see that kind of at scale ROI in my mind without being able to really tie that to the business strategy of the organization.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about use cases. So, from your work with P&C carriers, which AI use cases have actually proven effective, whether that's in underwriting, claims, or operations, and maybe what makes them sustainable over time?
Yeah, so certainly lots of use cases within underwriting and claims, and a very long history of using AI capabilities in both of those areas,
Mm.
as well as some of the other functional and support areas in the organizations. Within underwriting, there's a really broad range, so it depends on both the line of the business and as well the carrier's kind of comfort with the level of automation versus having a human kind of making those final decisions. So, we all know as consumers that in personal lines, there really is no human in the loop, right? The algorithms decide the premiums. You can get a quote very quickly. And so there is an instance where there's very high automation, where AI is effectively making the risk selection and underwriting decisions. And then you can go to much more specialized or niche areas where you really want to have underwriters weighing in and who have information about risk that the models may not know. And so in that instance, you would have models that provide guidance and help underwriters see patterns or help direct underwriters to pay attention to particular areas or to query further. So I've seen a lot of really significant value from use cases like that, kind of across that chain of highly automated to very little automation and significant underwriter involvement. On the claim side, I would say kind of two core use cases that I've seen time and time again. One is around the actual claims processing. So,
Mm.
how do you approach claims both at first notice of loss and as they progress? How do you make sure that you're giving the right level of attention to them and getting the right experience level adjuster involved in the claim? And so, AI can help direct you for that to say these are the ones that need more expertise, that need a more experienced eye. These are the ones that are a little bit more kind of bread and butter and can be more automated and flow through the process. And then the second use case in claims that I've seen a number of times is in fraud identification. So this is a little bit different than your traditional SIU team, which is often looking at things from an individual claimant perspective, and instead looking for patterns across providers, service providers, and other vendors and individuals involved in the claim to see if there might be out of pattern behavior. So, one kind of very quick example is in workers' compensation, you can envision looking at medical billing codes and to see if those medical bill codes are out of pattern with what is typical for that type of
Mm.
injury. So, things like that have a pretty long history, and I've seen those really be used for value in organizations.
These are great examples. So, perhaps a newer aspect of AI is generative AI, and you've described Gen AI as another layer of sophistication in the AI journey. How should insurers think about integrating Gen AI with their existing predictive and automation models?
Yeah, so to me, it's really another complementary set of capabilities that can add additional value and enhance what you're already doing. So, one example is in ingestion and synthesis of documents. So, this could be in the claims area where it's medical records, legal documents, other information coming from the various individuals involved in the claim, and really using generative AI to help identify patterns, to help draw your attention to particular aspects of the claim. And that can really complement what you may already have in place with your traditional machine learning models. I think the other aspect of it is it gives you an additional capability to have a more agile approach to whether it's underwriting or claims processing or other parts of the business, say marketing, where as new information becomes available, you can quickly digest, synthesis, and incorporate that information. So generative AI can be an additive capability to help make that more feasible and achievable and to do it at scale.
Okay, I would talk a little bit about transformation and maybe connecting the dots between transformation and AI. So, transformation doesn't happen in a vacuum. How do you bring together technology, talent, and operations, and when do functions like legal and HR and marketing need to be part of that AI conversation?
Yeah, so in my experience, I've really seen having that holistic view from the very beginning to be really, really valuable. So, effectively, really, truly from ideation stage. So, as you're starting to talk through a potential use case or an idea for some initiative you want to do in the organization, at that point, really bringing in some of those different perspectives. Most of us as individuals don't know everything about a company, right? It would be almost impossible to have that view. And so having other perspectives in the conversation to help point out potential opportunities, potential pitfalls, can be really helpful. And then as you were noting when to bring in, legal, HR, finance, others, again, to me, it's really doing that near very close to the beginning and then making that cross-functional group part of that kind of core stakeholder group throughout the initiative. So to make sure that you're on track as issues come up to help diagnose them with that group, to get a steer or if you need to pivot or adjust. Again, really making sure you're kind of understanding the implications across the organization as you're making those choices.
Yeah, you'd mentioned earlier upstream and downstream impacts. So I just want to double click on that notion for a second. So when a carrier introduces AI in one area, say underwriting or claims, what are the upstream and downstream impacts they should be ready for across the business?
Yeah, so if, for example, you were implementing something in underwriting, I think from an upstream implication, there may be additional information that the underwriters are evaluating or feedback they have as they start using the models. And you want that to flow back to your actuarial teams, to your data science teams, and frankly, to your data teams, the folks that are helping do data ingestion all the way in the upfront part. And that could be both internal and external data. In terms of the downstream implications, I think you want to make sure that claims is involved and understands the implications of what underwriting is doing, how they're making choices, changes that might be coming in terms of the mix of the book, for example, so that the claims team is prepared for what's likely to come to their area of the business as things progress in that product line.
We had talked a little bit about scale earlier, so just to kind of dive in a bit on that point and maybe differentiating between where to start and how to scale. So, for insurers at the beginning of their AI journey, where should they start in the first 90 days? And then for those further along, what's most important when scaling from a successful pilot to an enterprise level adoption?
Yeah, so I would say if you're just starting out, there's sort of three things I would suggest. One is to tie to the business strategy, which we've talked about already. Second is to start with what you have. So, given the explosion of AI capabilities, they are being embedded in all of the tooling and software that all of us are using throughout both our work lives and our personal lives. So, from the business perspective, there are likely AI capabilities that are already embedded in some of your core enterprise tools. So, whether that's your Office suite, whether that is your CRM tool, your policy admin system. And so you may already be paying for some of those capabilities, even if you're not utilizing them. So that would be an easy place to start as you've already got the vendor relationships, you're already using that kind of software. So starting there can be a really good place. And then the other piece is to start with some of those tried and true use cases. So you don't need to go to the bleeding edge. You don't need to move into higher risk or higher uncertainty areas, but really starting with some of those bread and butter use cases that other carriers implemented, 10 and 15 years ago, where they have seen proven value year over year, are good places to start. In terms of how to scale, I think there's a couple of things to consider. One is we often talk to clients who are doing pilots or proofs of concept, but what they missed was really measurement and tracking of
Hmm.
how that pilot is going, and particularly capturing data and information in order for them to make a go, no go decision about scaling to the entire enterprise. So that would be one thing, is if you're already down that path, is to try to pivot a little bit and see what could you capture now. If you're just starting out with a new pilot or proof of concept, is really to think through that, how would you make a go, no go decision, and making sure you've got that data to help aid you in that. The other piece I think is really the change management component. That's often the piece that is the most underestimated in terms of the effort involved. And so that's where really finding champions of change, users who are passionate about the solution, who really believe in its benefits, and can help them tell that story to their peers in the organization, can be a really good way that I've seen work time and time again, to really see that scale in the organization. So once you deploy it to the enterprise, to actually get the adoption and the usage of the tool, often having those peer champions from your user group can be really, really impactful.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point. So maybe just connecting, um, or maybe double clicking on the point around change management, and connecting the dots back to people and talent. So AI has generated enormous buzz, but the real transformation is going to depend on your people. So how should leaders think about upskilling, hiring, and keeping teams engaged even once the AI hype fades?
Yeah. So I think there's a couple of aspects to that. So one is thinking about what you need today. And what you need today may be things around training in some generative AI tools, if you have kind of an enterprise tool or two that you're using. It might be around training and upskilling in terms of AI governance and appropriate usage of AI, to make sure that your usage of AI is responsible and ethical. There may be things around identifying AI adjacent talent and then working to upskill those folks to help build out your AI capabilities in house. In terms of longer term, I think this is an area that we're seeing a lot of traction with clients and having a lot of conversations about, where clients are saying, look, I know that this is going to be part of my business over the long term, and I want to be prepared for that, not just in terms of what AI investments I'm making and how I'm adjusting the tech stack and my technology investments, but what does this mean for my workforce? How do I need to think about re-envisioning jobs? What are the roles that may change or that AI will really take over? And so we're doing a lot of work with clients on that, on again, that much more holistic view over the longer term, right? Over the next few years and beyond, to say, what should your job architecture look like? What should that broader upskilling and talent strategy plan be? And that, I think we're going to see more and more companies moving to that perspective and looking to have that more holistic integration, so that your talent strategy, your technology strategy, your AI strategy are all working in conjunction with your business strategy, right? And really supporting that.
Terrific. So, Megan, it's been a great conversation. Why don't we finish up with just maybe a handful of rapid fire questions? Would you be okay with that?
Absolutely.
All
Sounds
right,
good.
let's go for it. One overhyped AI idea.
Overhyped AI idea, I would say, is artificial general intelligence, or
Hmm,
AGI.
got it. One underhyped enabler of transformation.
Underhyped is definitely change management.
Okay, and then just to finish up, maybe one metric that every COO or CIO should be tracking to measure AI progress.
Yeah, I really think it's about long-term value creation. And so really thinking about how can you measure that, because that's the thing that's going to be the game changer for your organization.
Megan, thank you so much for joining us today. That was a terrific conversation.
Thanks so much for having me.
So that was a masterclass in separating signal from noise. Megan showed how clear strategy, fit for purpose use cases, and a cross functional operating model turn AI into business results, not just science projects. So if you're mapping your first 90 days or planning the leap from pilot to scale, share this with your business partners. And if today's episode resonated, make sure you subscribe to the JD Power AI and Insurance podcast and share it with your executive team. I'm Michael Vermillion, and we'll see you next time as we explore more ways AI is rewriting the insurance rulebook.